electronically. And this meeting has been, the meeting of the Board of Education has been properly noticed in accordance with open meeting law in State Statute 19.84 and related legal references. The vision of the Ripon Area School District is to be one of Wisconsin's finest school districts, fostering excellence for all through innovation. And we accomplish this vision through 6 core values. Those core values are excellence, commitment, collaboration, integrity, innovation, and kindness. Even to those who don't quiet their cell phones. Okay. Our first order of business is to recognize the RHS Equestrian team for competing in the state competition. So, Joan, would you like to come up and bring your team up?
Hi, I'm Joan Siloway, the equestrian coach. And this is the team this year. Allison is our captain, and she's going to take over.
Okay, so I'm Allison. I'm a senior this year. And for my classes, I was in barrels, flag, key race, and and poles. I got second in flag and then third in key race. And then I'll explain one of the classes so you kind of understand it. A flag is where there's 3 barrels, and there's a bucket on the 2 side barrels, and you have to run, grab the flag, go around the bucket, and then stick in the other one. And that's the class that I got second in. And then Becca, who's not here, she's a junior. She was in Western Showmanship, Hunt Seat Showmanship, Saddle Seat Showmanship. And then she got 8th in Walk Trot Equitation and 9th in Hunter Hack with her horse Nacho. And Hunter Hack is basically just going over like jumps.
Alright, I'm Carrington, I'm a junior. I placed 10th in trail, 7th in ranch riding, 4th in Western Horsemanship, and 4th in Hunt Seat Championship, and I won Western Championship.
Excellent.
With my horse Pearl. I like showmanship. It's where you do groundwork and you do like pivots and you like trot with your horse next to it on the ground.
My name is Amanda Beck. I am a sophomore and I participated in the classes Hunt Seat Showmanship, Bareback Horsemanship, which I took 3rd in, Hunt Seat Equitation, which I took 1st in, 7th in Discipline Rail, but that was with my horse Scooby, and then I placed 4th in Reinsmanship with my horse Dandy. And in my Hunt Seat Equitation class, it's a pattern that you do while you're on your horse in the Hunt Seat Equitation.
My name is Maddie White. I'm a freshman, and my horse's name is Chevy. I competed in Western Showmanship, Western Horsemanship, Discipline Rail. I placed 7th. Discipline Rail, Ranch Trail, I placed 7th. And Ranch Riding, I placed 9th. My class that I liked was Discipline Rail. Ranch Riding, because it's a pattern that you do on your horse, but there's no cone set up. So you just it's arena awareness, and you pick up speed and slow down. Yeah.
And then Carrington and Amanda tied for the high point with 29 points.
Wow.
Do you have any questions?
I'd like to know how long you've known your horses and worked with your horses.
We'll start with Amanda.
So I've known my horse ever since he was really little, but I got him when he was 2 years old, so I've had him for 7 years now, and I've been riding him ever since then.
I've had my horse Pearl for about 5 years now.
Well, my horse's name is Willow, and he's 26. So he's very old, and I've known him for my whole entire life. So.
Wow.
I've known Chevy and like been with Chevy for about 6 years.
That's very impressive. What a bond you must have with your horses.
What do you do in the wintertime?
Right?
Yeah, inside or outside?
Yeah.
Inside?
Mostly inside.
Okay.
Yeah. We actually were just talking, there is some shows at Heartland Stables. You don't have to dress up, you can just go in your everyday, but you wear a helmet and your boots, that's required. And they have shows that you can still kind of keep focus on during the winter, which is good because then the horse is better when spring comes. So, and it's fun just to go and, not have to be all dressed up. And we were talking that we're gonna try to do a few of them together as a group this year.
Okay.
Would you just explain briefly, because the whole like season process really happens in a short amount of time, right? For the course of a number
It
of
does,
days,
but
is it-
the girls do practice and go to open shows all summer. We probably start practicing right after school.
Okay.
We, I would say, start out once a week, just getting together. There's like 3 different places where we meet, which is very nice. That the people let us do that because it is hard. We try to go to the places where the girls have horses because it's less trailering then. And it's hard for the parents to do that too. So, but once we get closer to the show season, we probably practice once or twice a week, at least as a group. So it involves a lot. It's not just get on your horse and ride. They have to clean them, groom them, and bathe them. Some of the girls have to put bands or braids in their manes because there's certain requirements. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I thank you to our parents who are the other part of the team here to make sure that we have a strong equestrian team, because you're right, there's a lot of work that goes into it.
And
Above
from the
and
parents
above
too.
and beyond.
And I have to say that these girls have been wonderful to work with this year. They were very respectful. Some years you don't always have that. And they were always willing to do something. Like before it was out of my mouth, they were helping each other or helping somebody else. So that makes the year better too. So it's wonderful, along with their parents. So.
Well, congratulations, and we
Thank
have
you.
some certificates for you. Congratulations, Sean. Becca. Not here. Okay. Congratulations. Say your name again. Yeah. Here you go. Congratulations. Congratulations. And we're in the right order. Amen. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of the Scouts. Hope you learn a lot while you're here at our meeting. Thanks for coming to observe. Do we have any written comments
No, we
or
don't.
public,
And no one is signed up
public
to speak.
comments? Okay, then we'll move on. Is anybody interested in adjusting the order of tonight's agenda? I guess the one thing is that we are not having a closed session. So, that's great. We'll move on to announcements of contributions to the district.
Three contributions. All three were sponsors for our Great Conversations event, which funds our Ripon Education Foundation. Southwoods Association, in memory of Bob Rosenberg, donated $1,000. Tom and Nicole Moniz donated $500, and Condon Oil $250. So I'm thankful for that, and they helped to make it a wonderful event.
Yes, thank you to the donors. Okay, moving on. Next on the agenda is a special presentation from Dr. Andrea Young, VP for Finance and Director of Strategic Initiatives at Ripon College. And, yep, please, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, for joining us. We've had numerous conversations regarding the upcoming work at Ingalls Field and our continued commitment for both organizations for that space, and we wanted to give Andrea an opportunity to meet all of you and share your thoughts regarding the project.
Absolutely. So thanks for a presentation is maybe a little bit strongly worded, but thanks for your time. And as Mary said, I'm really here on behalf of the college to reaffirm our commitment to shared partnership with the school district, especially surrounding our shared athletic resources. You know, we're all stronger by the way we share Ingalls Field, Wilmore Center, the tennis courts. It's a really, in my view, a really aspirational model that the college and the school district and the community have in the way that we all do things to benefit each other. And so over the past couple of months, I've learned more about turf than I ever thought I would, and we've had great conversations with Mary and Jonah and Bill and members of our team about the Ingalls Field project. So from the college's standpoint, the turf installation process and the Ingalls Field agreement is still very much a work in progress. And so I'm glad that I got a chance to be here tonight, because there's some of the things that are in the documents that you saw today, reflecting the college's position on certain things, as I mentioned to Mary earlier, I think are maybe not entirely representative of something. In particular, we may not actually have a strong position on them. So we're still viewing this very much as a dialogue. And some of the things that we have proposed and that we've talked about with Jonah, with Mary, with Bill, reflect some of the financial realities of Ripon College right now. As you'll know from the article a few weeks ago in the paper, it's a challenging time to be a small rural institution of higher ed right now. And so some of that is reflected in these conversations, but we still value our partnership. We're open to a lot of different solutions, including reducing the overall cost of the project, including different sorts of arrangements that make the whole partnership palatable to both parties. And I'm really optimistic and look forward to continuing to figure out what solution for Ingalls Field works best for everyone involved. So I'm happy to be here, and if you have questions for me regarding any of the college's sort of positions or stated positions that are in the papers, I'd be very happy to answer those if that's appropriate, or if not, it's great to see everyone face to face and put some faces with names. So.
Well, thank you. There is an upcoming action item that we will discuss, for next month, but will be discussed later tonight, if you want
Great.
to stay for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we will discuss Midwest Turf is here to discuss their proposal.
Good evening, board. Dr. Whitrock, thank you for having us tonight. We're very excited to be here. I've got our owner, Jody Factor, as my wingman, and I'm grateful to see you outside of your parkas that we met a couple weeks ago on the fields in southeast Wisconsin, and it's actually warmer today, I think, than it was then. So we're excited to bring you what we consider the best product in the market. The Iron Turf product is something that we're really excited that you're advancing to talk about as a vote. It is considered the safest product. It is considered the most durable product that is out there right now. And before I took a sales role, I was a school administrator. And I went through the vetting process. I thought I did a lot of vetting until I met Jonah and Bill and Brian. And they had me on speed dial. They asked me a wide variety of questions. So their recommendation should mean a lot to the board because they've done their homework more than any other school I've ever seen. So I want to open it up with questions that you have about the turf, because we answered a lot of questions when you were on site, but I think that it was a little chilly and you wanted to get back to the van, which is perfectly understandable, but what questions do you have for us? And I want to reemphasize at the end of the day, the service that you're going to receive from Midwest, nobody else is going to get, because the guy behind me lives in Marquezan, and he drives by your field once a day, and he sends me a picture of Eagles Field every single day. And so I might have to ask a favor. If it does advance it, you might have to get him a staff badge, just he might be on the field weekly. So that is one thing that I want to forewarn you, that you might see this guy often on the field. So what questions do you have about the turf, possibly the installation, the product, the maintenance, the partnership for life of the turf? It's not like you're going to see me and then you're going to see me in 15 years when you need another turf. We're going to be here often. So what questions do you have, Tom?
I've got one question. The college uses a big, heavy blocking sled. Is that damaging to the turf?
It is not, and we should probably take a peek at the bottom. When this goes in, there are some units that have some stainless steel options on the bottom. Just want to make sure it's up to standard and it doesn't have any rust. I hate to see your carpet pulled out from an old unit, so let's take a peek at that when it goes in.
Not a question as much as a thank you. Not just to you and to your team, but also to Jonah and to Brian. It really was incredibly thorough and so helpful to be able to stand on an actual field, and not just a field with your product, but a field with several different fields of products, and to actually be able to see and stomp on it, to get down and to touch it and to look at the difference between the pellets. It really did tell a story, and I think that's information that was incredibly valuable, as we're going to be involved in the decision-making process. So I appreciate your time with that, and the time of everyone involved.
Absolutely.
When we were taking our field trips on that day.
I can honestly say that you're the first school board I had come onto a field, and a lot of members coming on, and to take it as seriously as your board has and your team has is really important. And I think that's a testament to Ripon and Ripon College. I think you're going to be very happy with everything that goes on that field. So,
coincidentally, because of the weather conditions, the Ripon College women's soccer team played on Ingalls Field the day after we met with you. My daughter is on the team, and I was in the stands, and several of the parents of those players also happen to be coaches and longtime coaches, and they took the opportunity to just download a ton of information, which lined up with everything that we had learned the day before. And I also got to observe our worn out turf in behaving with players on the field and with balls, and the way that the balls were reacting on that turf. It gives you a very different perspective. So that was a fantastic learning opportunity, and they reinforced everything that you had been telling us, as well as Jonah and Brian and some of the other vendors, about the necessity for the change in the product.
It's interesting how you look at it with a different lens after the tours, but I appreciate the feedback, and certainly grateful for the opportunity to have your team with us and walk the field.
I'd like to say something real quickly. As the owner, what you just said, and Mary, what you said, and what everybody did with their intel, if you will, their diligence, is very important to me as an owner. You know, I was listening to your core values, and it's easy for people to say, you know, we have integrity, you know, and it's a mantra I have that I've told Ryan since he's been with me, is that the turf industry has not always had that integrity, and the salespeople, I don't bash them. They're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. A lot of them just don't really know they're salespeople, and it's my philosophy to always tell the truth. I want people to follow up and find out that what I'm saying is the truth, so that you can count on us and you feel comfortable that you have a partner. This is so important when I hear what you have to say. As an owner, it means so much to me that people really care and not just buying into marketing mumbo jumbo. There's a lot more to this, and the turf, the service, and everything. So thank you very much for caring as much as you do, investigating and find out that what I'm saying is not marketing, but indeed is, you know, I'm telling you the truth and looking out for the best interest of the customer, and that means a lot to me. Thank you.
In fact, our team was looking at research articles over the weekend, just following up on things. I was actually on the phone with a certified researcher out of the UK to be an unbiased source to just reaffirm what we were hearing and put that information in. So they are, between Jonah, Bill, and Brian, a very diligent team, and what they know about turf is a whole new level. I don't think they thought they would have that knowledge of turf when they began the process, but they have it now. So.
More than they wanted, right?
But don't take any of my administrators for salespeople, please.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. And unless there are any other questions?
Just a quick clarifying question, Brian. Life expectancy we've discussed is roughly 15 years, is that correct?
So this product is guaranteed for 10 non-prorated, which is unheard of in the industry. So what the testing is there's a list sport test, which we've thrown at you. We've thrown a lot of test results at you, but it's a list sport test. Break it down really quickly. It's a rolling drum with a bunch of cleats in it, and that's a durability test for the turf industry. And most turfs last about 100,000 hours. This was at 300,000 hours of playability, and they shut it off because it wasn't being damaged. So our hope is 15 years, and we've got a plan with Brian to continue to maintain, and the maintenance is going to extend the life of the turf. So that's what we're shooting for.
All right, thank
And
you.
the pad that we're looking at would likely last through 2 cycles of replacement, which is good to know.
I think Tom has a question, but I'd like to ask first, are there any soil conditions that we need to look at that would need to be corrected, possibly, or are there any other conditions that would affect the installation and the costs and the lifetime?
So do you want to answer that?
I'll answer that. So your field, I know a little bit about your field. When we remove your turf, we're not looking at the soil anymore. Your soil has already been, if there was any issues, it was resolved when the first field was put in. Your base, which is the stone underneath the turf, has a few, you know, undulations, some imperfections. That's not uncommon over time. When we take the field off, we will fix that and make it substantially plainer again, like it was supposed to be. Sometimes there are drainage issues, but I know your field doesn't have drainage issues. Your field only has clogged drains or something down by the corners where the water comes, you know, it gets so much rain it overflows. We discussed about some things that can be done to mitigate that situation. But the way that it's tilted, it would be such a costly thing. It's just not worth fixing. It's easy to maintain as long as you maintain it, keep that clear. And we talked about some ways to keep those, you know, the area where it's filling up with black rubber and it's blocking the drain, just cleaning it out a little bit more. But the other thing that we might encounter, but it's not a very costly thing, is when I take the turf up. If any of you were here when it was put in, I know, Tom, you were, weren't you? And so there's 2x4 treated lumber inside the perimeter that the turf is attached to. Sometimes when we take the turf off, some of that lumber is no good anymore. We replace it. It's not very expensive. and usually there's not much of it to do, but it's pretty inexpensive. I think I can't remember how much it was a linear foot to replace, but I did high school this summer. Well, a few of them that I had to take out, and I think the most linear footage I had to take out was 40 linear feet of 2x4s. It's not a very, and that's a great problem. So that's all I anticipate.
Okay, thank you. And Tom?
Explain to me that 12-foot white border around the field. Is that a new rule for college?
It's not new. What it is, you don't have to have a 12-foot white border, but for high school and college, they have a rule that there is a restraining line at 6 foot for high school, or minimum of 6 foot, okay? Or 12 foot for college. And so you'll see if you go, sometimes they'll put dash lines in, or some people will come and spray paint the area. And so this alleviates the need to constantly do that for the games and gives it a really nice aesthetic look.
So we'll have the dashes?
No, it'd be a 12-foot wide, so from where the perimeter is of the football field, which is 160 feet across, add another 12 feet instead of just a 4-inch white perimeter line, it's 12 feet.
Thank you. One more quick question. What about the length of cleats? Does it matter?
No, as long as they're not steel.
Okay. Thank you.
Does the board have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for coming
Thank you.
to discuss.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'll have an update on the Barlow Park charter school.
Well, Andrea's with us because she is our treasurer for the Barlow Park Charter Governance Council, so she's representing the governing board tonight. You should have received an update. We are still updating the update, but we have established the vision for the school as setting a positive trajectory for lifelong learning. We felt like this really says what we hope to do for our kids in providing a different learning environment for them. We're hoping that it's going to really set them up to take off with their personalized learning and really be able to take ownership going on from our building. As requested, we did do a survey. The surveys were distributed to all K-2 families at Barlow Park only at parent-teacher conferences. The reason we chose to do a paper copy is we felt like it gave an opportunity for parents to ask questions and then also have governance council members and myself available in case there was any further conversation that anyone wanted to have around the survey or around the school. We also had, during that time, the video that Jolene had made for us looping on the TV in that under the hallway. So we were able to reference that in case anyone wasn't able to do that at home or needed to do it a second time. Additionally, paper copies were sent home with all 4 PS families in the district. And we did paper copies there as well. What we decided to do is put an incentive at the bottom and for gift card, for a drawing for gift cards, for just returning the responses. It doesn't have to be a positive response, it just for returning it. And so the results were there. We only asked 4 questions. We tried to be as brief and specific as possible, but we found some really good things is that many of our families have already heard about Barlow Park Charter School, which is great. Most of them did not have questions. Those that did have questions, the information, I did attach the questions to the bottom, where to find information online. Will be a 2nd grade experience, too much change for 1 year, and how do I choose which school is the right fit for my child, what is it, how do I get more info, and what is the research and evidence. And it is important to note, though, that we do have a lot of these questions this time of the year, especially from our 4PS families as they're preparing to make a school choice for the kids as they're going into kindergarten. So those are typical questions that we would hear at this time. And then a very interesting one, we had asked how they would like to receive more information about the new charter school. We were anticipating it was going to be through social media, and it was actually through email. Was the number one overwhelming amount. Almost 60% of our families would rather see information through email. So based on that, then we had our FAQs, and Jolene sent those out through Infinite Campus, so it was able to go to the email inbox for our families. And then we also sent home paper copies and then had them available at any of the charter school events that we had done. And then at this time, what is your level of interest in Barlow Park Charter School? And that was all broken out. We had a scale of very interested, somewhat interested, not sure, and not interested. And again, it's pretty common this time of the year of our families to still have that not sure piece, especially for our 4PSers, because they haven't really gone to any of that orientation stuff yet. We did have 70 surveys returned to us, which is a pretty good amount for a paper copy. But it is still in discussion as to whether or not we'll send out a digital copy to families as well, while removing the incentive piece, because that would be kind of hard to do. The Governance Council did come up with a draft of a contract, which is being submitted as an upcoming action item for this evening, and the council's looking for a vote on the contract at the December school board meeting, which is the timeline that was established in July when we accepted the grant funds. We had our very first community charter chat, which was the team had decided to try off-site locations to see if we could engage more families. So it was on a Thursday evening at McDonald's, and there was paper copies sent home of the flyers. They were available at school, they were available at conferences. They were sent home through Infinite Campus and Facebook and other social media, so we tried to get out as much as possible. The event was very informal. Families were just able to stop in. Brittany had created, well, they're called cootie catchers, but we used to call them fortune tellers. But they had facts about the charter school there, and those were a hit, and some of our younger community members decided to come and take a hand at folding some of those, so that was an exciting part of the evening. Staff and Governance Council members were in school t-shirts and were available to answer any questions. It was not as widely attended as we had hoped, but this was shortly after we learned that families wished to have information through email. But there are still 3 more charter chats that'll be scheduled, the next one being on Saturday, November 23rd from 2 to 3 at the public library. As far as communications, Jolene and Brittany met with staff and read through meeting notes to get information about the charter school and to help us create a video that follows a day in the life of a child at Barlow Park Charter School, and it highlights different portions of the day where the kids will be grouped with same-age peers, but then other portions of the day where they will be grouped by competencies and skills. The video is shared on social media, the website, through Infinite Campus as well, and then additional information videos are in the works to be released to share additional information regarding the charter school. Jolene also worked with teachers to compile a list of commonly asked questions from community members, and that was a document that was sent through an email blast, and then we had available and will continue to have available in the office and at any of the charter school events. We had the cootie catchers that were sent home with students, and teachers just taught the kids how to use them so that they could show their families when they got home. And a draft of a brochure has been created by Brittany Meyer, and it's been shared out on Google Classroom, which is how we communicate and organize all of our information about the charter school. And the hope is to have the brochure available to families by the end of December. But right now, the draft has been sent out to all staff, and they're currently providing feedback, and Brittany is doing additional drafts for them based on their feedback. And then along the same lines, Brittany has helped us draft a poster board, which is similar to the ones that we have done for the other district schools. And that will be then used at any of the charter school events going forward. And that's currently shared to the staff for feedback through Google Classroom as well.
Good? Mm-hmm.
I would like to show the video.
Okay.
That's the board is amenable.
The Ripon Area School District was thrilled when it was awarded a charter grant for Barlow Park Elementary School. Our caring team of teachers, along with parent leaders, want you to know how the charter will benefit our Ripon students. The teaching team have put in hundreds of hours planning, researching, and learning, with the goal to bring the best resources to their students. Parents have questions about what their child's day will look like when the new school opens. Students will be with grade level peers in homerooms for 60 to 70% of their day to receive instruction in science, social studies, smart, large, and fine motor skill development, specials such as library, music, phi ed, and art, and also a guided play workshop. For 30 to 40% of their day, students will be in competency-based, flexible, multi-age groups to receive instruction in math and reading. Let's take a quick tour and find out what a typical day for a Barlow Park charter student might look like. Your student will start their day with a morning meeting in their homeroom, much like they do now. For example, kindergartners will be with other kindergartners. During this time, each day students share good things that are going on, connect with classmates, and develop social-emotional learning skills. Teachers monitor and regroup students according to need and area of focus. For the math learning block, your student will be placed in a group with other children who have similar math needs. That means the group could be multi-age. This specialized grouping will allow for small group instruction and one-on-one time with the teacher. Students who are ready to move on can easily do so, and those that need more time won't be rushed. During reading block, your child will be placed with other children who have similar reading strengths. Students will work on using a variety of decoding strategies to read accurately and fluently. The block may be multi-age. Specialized instruction will happen through mini lessons and small groups, as well as one-on-one conferences. Science and social studies rotate. Students will be back with their homeroom classes for these subjects. It's lunchtime. Students will eat lunch and go to recess with other students from their own grade. Following recess and lunch, we'll return to the classroom for some rest and relaxation. During this transition time, students can enjoy quiet activities like puzzles and books. This will help everyone to be ready for afternoon learning. For play workshop, students will be with students from their grade level. That means second graders will be with second graders who have similar social emotional learning needs. The teacher will plan lessons that are personalized to the learners in the group. Play workshop includes a whole group mini lesson, small group instruction, and one-on-one conferences with the teacher using play as the guided practice. Your child's teacher will continuously monitor progress and, depending on your child's needs, move them into a group that will best support their continued development. Now it's on to Smart Time. Your student will be with their homeroom classmates to practice their readiness skills through free play and smart activities. Smart activities are fun, physical activities for developing and enhancing large and fine motor skills, balance and coordination, and so much more. They may spend time on the smart track. After smart time, students stay with their classmates and head off to specials like art and music. Let's not forget Fayad. At the end of the day, students come back to their homerooms for a closing meeting and celebrations. Dismissal routines, and it's time to head home. If you have more questions about the new charter school, your child's parent-teacher conference is the perfect time to ask all those questions specific to your child. Make sure your conference is scheduled. Attend the charter chat sessions, which are open to anyone interested in learning more, and don't forget about the Power of Play events. We want the very best for our students. Barlow Park Charter School. It takes a village.
Thank you. Now I invite the board to ask Tanya or Andrea any questions that you might have. Well, comment.
One question I had was in concern to one of the survey questions about the level of interest in the Barlow Park Charter School. And it appeared that the very interested and somewhat interested was just below 50%. Was there a little bit concern with that result at this time?
It's hard to say. I guess I don't see concern with it because what we look at is the not sure, or truly not sure, and so we need to gear our information toward that group so that they can choose one way or the other.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How many responses did you get? You said 70. Was that just the 4 PS or was that in
70 total. Yep.
Thank you for the information and presentation. It's very good. I have a question in regards to the surveys with you having right now about half of the families that have replied being somewhat interested or very interested. Do you have a draft right now of the application process that will lay out the option of the families who are not interested in either charter school? Can you give us some clarification on how you're responding so we know how to respond?
And we haven't drafted that. We've started to have that conversation about what that will look like, but we haven't come up with that yet. I would imagine that we would work on that as an admin team though, because we'll be looking at those that are transitioning to third grade as well. But in the past, we've sent it home and it's had the brochure that kind of was double-sided. But I did just send out information to our staff to ask as well, because we had previously done screening, which is where our kindergarten screening, where our parents got a bulk of their information for our incoming kindergartners. But we won't be doing that screening, so information was just sent out to the team to ask how they would like to get that information out to parents. A couple suggestions and then opening it up to their ideas. Mm-hmm.
The one thing we had talked about was opening up Journey to not have a cap so that charter became an option, as well as a non-charter option, that we're required to offer that. We just don't know what the non-charter option would look like depending on how many may choose that. So, stay tuned.
So compliments to you and your team on the materials that you put out during the past month. It's a lot of work in order to get that done. And thank you and compliments to Brittany and Jolene for their role in that, as well as your staff members. It's a lot of hard work that goes into that. So.
Anyone else?
I would just say that I know that when, I think I said at the last meeting, that when Journey Charter School opened, we were making calls to parents to fill the 2 sections that we had hoped for, because parents are unsure, and in some ways it's a little intuitive just to say, I'm just going to sit back this first year and let it run, and then, jump on board after some of the kinks are worked out. So that was something that we had to do to make sure that we had 2 full sections, and we may end up doing that too with numbers. I know that was something that we talked about last time, Amy, was just looking at sections and numbers just to make sure we had things in a workable way, so we didn't have it too lopsided. And we'll certainly do that to make sure it's a good, whatever the option the family chooses is a good option for them.
I think ideally to have an accurate number for the playways that they can still collaborate.
Yes, absolutely.
So to have a small number would not be beneficial for the team.
Absolutely, and that's always been, I think, a priority with the charters, is to make sure that there was enough, that we had good collaborations. I appreciate you saying that.
And thank you, Jolene and Brittany. Did anybody want a cookie catcher? Bring some.
Thank you very much. Okay, this.
Connie, I think you should just give everyone one, just.
I don't know if I have enough for everyone, but you could
Or at
share.
least send a few around the table.
That would be great. Okay, I think this brings us to our student representative report. Theo is here, and what do you have for us, Theo?
So last week I know I talked about cell phone policy and dress code policy, and I'm proud to say that we've made progress on both fronts. We formed a formal subcommittee to look at the dress code, and I'm handling the cell phone issues with Mr. Kinzinger personally.
Okay. Any questions for Theo?
I'm just curious what next steps would look like as far as moving forward with updated dress code policy.
Absolutely. So I think we're still going to try and gauge the temperatures on a school uniform. I think it has a lot of merit, but obviously it's not the most popular thing. If that is unachievable, then we'll probably have to settle for just clearer language in the dress code and less ambiguity. Because I think at the moment, a lot of girls are disproportionately affected by that because they don't know what the standards are. So I think what the next step will look like, in our subcommittee, we'll go over line by line what is in the dress code and then try and then make suggestions to Mr. Kinzinger based on what we think is ambiguous and try and make the language clear and create a definitive standard. And then as far as the cell phone policy goes, right now Mr. Kinzinger and I are trying to create an independent study so we can gather data within the school, but I know there's some high schoolers in the audience right now, so I don't want to say too much because otherwise it might compromise the integrity of any study that we do. But I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I do have a follow-up question for you too. Do you know of any public schools in Wisconsin that have a school uniform policy?
Yes, I do. I'm glad you asked. I think in 2017, the Milwaukee public school system adopted a school uniform. So, yeah, I actually reached out to the vice principal at Pulaski, asking her a couple questions, and just asking for testimonial too, so that we might use that going forward.
Yeah, that's very diligent. Thank you. Appreciate it, Theo.
And I would just take a moment to compliment the high school and the middle school because we had an unexpected 2-hour delay this morning because of a house fire, and we feel so bad for the family and appreciative of all of those rescue workers who were a part of that. But in that process, we ended up transporting our middle school and high school students to our elementary schools our bus students until the middle school and high school were open. So I'm thankful to the staff who took it in stride and made the arrangements. But just before I headed over, received photos because some of the high school students chose to use that time to push into some of the elementary classrooms to interact with our younger students and to read books. And that was really a nice way to get some multi-age work going on in the classrooms. And so I'm thankful for the students for doing that and helping our younger students. I'm sure it was like celebrity day for our young kids. Yeah, these big kids come in. So.
No doubt. Anybody else have anything for Theo? Okay, well, we really appreciate that update. Thank you. And as always, you don't have to stay, but you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Depends on.
Okay, very good. Now we're moving on to the consent agenda. And I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Nate and Andy. And I will call for the vote. And it looks like we agree to pass the consent agenda, so thank you very much. And we'll move on. Okay, moving on to new business. The action item that is under consideration is the recommendation for 4 PS collaborative time for 2020-2021 school year. Last month, the proposal was discussed. Let's have a motion, and then we can discuss it after somebody moves it.
Vote to approve.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Thank you, Betsy. Okay, would anybody like to discuss the motion?
I like the idea that they can get together and discuss, collaborate.
I thought it was, it's a well thought out proposal. Okay, anybody else? Okay, we'll call for the vote. And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next we have a personnel motion. Would anybody like to move this motion for the middle school, high school choir position?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, John. Second? Somebody? Thanks, Amy. Discussion.
Glad to see we have someone.
Me too.
And it was an interesting interview process as well. We ended up being able to virtually see the teacher teaching a lesson in a real life setting, which we found out is so much more telling and valuable than even having someone come in and teach a lesson within the interview, which is typically what we do. So having changed our interview process as well.
And how quickly is he able to start?
Right after the first of the year. He's finishing up his duties there and is involved with his church and is doing the choir and has holiday services that he'll be a part of and he's headed this week.
How's he from?
He's out in New Mexico, but he does have family about 4 hours from here. So he was excited to be back in the Midwest.
Midwest standards, that's close.
Yeah, nice close, yeah. You don't have to take the phone.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Now, that completes our action items for the evening. And now we're going to move on to information items. The first is the staffing changes for the district. Does anybody have any questions or comments for the superintendent or other administrators? Okay, I personally would like to acknowledge the administration in staffing up Odyssey as well as they did, and for managing all the complexities that come with.
It is our largest hiring pool, and at a time of a shortage, we have some really high-quality teachers that we've been able to bring aboard, and it's very exciting.
And you were able to do this within budget constraints, and it's very
And
admirable.
if you've not had a chance, just in speaking of Odyssey, to go on, when you get the weekly update, to go on and look at their newsletter, they've actually have some of the virtual project-based learning projects that are posted and some of the student work. So it's pretty fun to see that first round of projects are being submitted and what the students are working on.
Very good. Next on the agenda is upcoming action items for approving the turf vendor. Does anybody have any additional questions, concerns,
If you want to just
comments?
come up and just give a brief overview.
Sure.
Aware of the discussions.
Okay. Thank you, Jonah.
Just a little bit about what it is, what we're going with. and recommending. We know it's your favorite topic.
Yes. The turf team approach the speaker table. Thank you.
And while they're getting situated, I should say thank you to Jolene for keeping track of all of the movement with the staff that you just saw in that report. It makes a lot of sense that they're ready to jump into the classroom.
So we have been, doing a lot of research. We spent a lot of time today and so on, just looking into it as far as we can. And the recommendation that we had posted last Monday is what we believe is the best, to go with Midwest Turf with their turf that can last, we expect up to 15 years. We believe it's really safe. With that is a recommendation to have a shock pad underneath, a 14mm shock pad. We were talking to somebody, as Mary said, from the UK today, and he said in Europe 90% of the fields have shock pad, and it's not a debate that it makes fields safer. And so that was helpful to hear, just to reaffirm the path that we were on.
And thank you guys for coming and looking at the turf. I wish the weather would have held out for us a little bit better so we could see a little bit more than what we did. But I wanted to give you the vendors that they were looking at and see what the distinct differences were. I know we appreciate you guys taking the time and coming with us to help us make that informed decision.
Additionally, if we do go with a cheaper variety, you could get 12 years out of that. And to equal 36 years, you'd have to replace it 3 times. Whereas if we go top of the line here and get this one, the Iron Turf, it's going to last 15 to 20, so I'm going to say 18 years, and you only have to replace it twice or one other time. So for $60,000 extra, you have one less turf cycle, which will save the district hundreds of thousands of dollars. So monetarily, we'd be prudent to make that decision as well.
Can we just very clearly, for the sake of the public record, spell out exactly why natural grass is absolutely no longer an option for our athletic facilities? We had a lot of social media chatter. Some of it was well-intentioned, well, why can't we just do grass? Some of it was maybe a little more mischievous, but can we please just state one more time why that is just not a safe option for our student athletes?
I'm gonna start, if that's okay. We had 101 different events down there just this fall. And if you have rain on, let's say, a Friday that goes into Saturday, that turf is shot for the rest of the year. In the middle 2000s, before we got the turf, that's exactly what happened. I think Tom could speak to that better than I could, but the amount of play that we have on Ingalls Field dictates the synthetic field, without a doubt.
In regards to your 101 events, can you give clarification about how much is used by the college versus how much is used by the high school? Do you have?
You know, with that, 46. Nice to have that with you. 45.5% were Ripon College football and soccer, 48.5% were Ripon High School football and soccer, and 6% were community. Yep.
When the gentleman spoke in regards to the turf, he talked about the integrity being one of our values in our district, which I also believe is a value of Ripon College. And I am thankful that we are considering the safety of our students before the financial investment, putting it hand in hand being both very important. Also keeping in mind that yes, we as a district are their customer, but so are our student athletes. And I'm very excited that we are going to take very good care of them.
So Matt mentioned about reusing sand and possibly some rubber to save a little bit of money. Are you guys okay with that option?
That would have been in a different proposal.
Is that different proposal?
Yep.
Okay.
So there was only one vendor that suggested doing the recycling. The concern is what's in that material after it's been on the field for the 11 years.
Sure.
You know, so the vendors were not, were at total ends of the spectrum on what to do with recycling.
Okay. So everything goes out,
Everything would be removed. We may reuse some of the turf because it may have some useful life for some batting cages or for pitching mounds. You know, so we're looking to use that so we don't have to put it in a landfill, but we'll use up as much as we can to not increase that footprint. You know.
And does the gravel layer come out too, or does that stay in place?
They would only be fixing it to get it replaned.
Okay.
I mean, the concern that with the field down there is one it's a Durasline field turf product, which has been on the news quite a bit with some product issues. The other issue is when the field was originally installed, there was a 70% sand, 30% rubber, which now the trend is totally opposite. So what's happened if you don't deep groom it and continue to keep up on it, the sand compacts and actually turns into like brittle. So that is one of the bigger reasons why our field is as hard as it is.
Brian, following up on that, is there any special equipment that we need to acquire to groom the field?
So Jody had looked at our equipment when he's been here. He's been here several times. We would contract with them to do a deep cleaning or deep grooming, which would be they kind of break the sand and the rubber apart and kind of grind, get it broke up again. They would do that once a year, and then we would maintain the field with grooming from there on. So they're going to make sure that we have if we need any additional equipment, we will get the additional equipment that we would need. But he thought the equipment that we had was actually very good and could be used on the new turf.
What equipment do we have now?
So we have a vacuum pipe of equipment, so you can get all the debris and stuff off of the turf. And then we actually have a groomer that will dig into the rubber and that sand to kind of keep it a little, less, so it doesn't congregate to each other. The problem we have with the current turf that's down there, the turf has split and leaned down, so you can no longer groom it because all you're doing is ripping out fibers. So the only thing at this point we can do is clean it and get the debris and try and break up that top layer.
You shared with us when we had our field trip to the various fields, the feedback that we get from the kids, from the athletes that are on the field. Can you share that with the whole board about what it feels like to play on these different surfaces?
I'll just share Keewaskum, because that's the comment, I think this is what you're asking. Keewaskum has a field with a shot pad on it, and our kids, they're wondering, when are we going to get this? When can we have this? They really enjoyed Keewaskum's field and they wondered what was on it, and I said the shot pad, and they've made positive comments about it.
And so a thought for everyone, as we move into the spring and we look to wrap up our spring sports seasons, and this goes out to the community as well, take an opportunity to go out and walk on the existing field so that when the new field is installed and you walk on the new field, you have your own personal comparison because you'll really feel the difference. But the new field won't be quite as amazing if you haven't walked down the old field to experience what we have. And truly, it's owned by all the members of our community, so it's something we can all be excited about.
And they would do this in June, I think it was?
Yep.
And it takes what, a couple weeks?
Weather cooperates, yeah. 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
I think they told us 19 days from start to finish. And we're planning, I think we have a WIA regional soccer game on possible Friday, and then on Monday they would start the turf.
Okay, speaking of regional games, if we were to have this great new field, does that open up opportunities for us to play host to some of these kind of events and perhaps bring in some additional revenue that we wouldn't have the opportunity for given our current surface?
Yes and no. We do already have those opportunities, and those opportunities were greater, I would say, in 2009, 2010, 2011, when we were one of a few schools that had turf. But now with so many schools that have turf, I guess we don't have as many opportunities as we'd like. Good question.
And I think with the partnership with the college, it does limit, our availability for extra activities because we do have their competitions as well that we host out there.
Any other questions or comments? This will be as an action item in the December board meeting. Oh, Tom?
What other schools in our current conference have synthetic turf?
Keewaskum, Plymouth in their new $5.2 million indoor facility.
He says that a lot.
That is it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of schools within the area of different conference levels that have.
Kiel does. We play Kiel as a non-conference football as far as soccer.
Lower to Oshkosh.
Oshkosh, okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Do you want to start with the next couple items, which are the financing?
Yeah, next,
Anyone has questions?
next up, upcoming, possible upcoming item for action will be approving financing, or considering approving financing for Ripon College's share of Ingalls, of the turf. I'm sure everybody has read the memos. Are there any questions or comments that board members would like to raise? Andrea's here as well.
Well, I guess I have a question. So, I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, I guess, maybe. So the college wants to go up to 10 years, but they also talk about, potentially stop making payments if they no longer need the field, basically. And I guess I'm just kind of, what's the thought behind that? Because,
Come on, you can talk.
Andrea, could you?
yeah, I mean, I guess you're just gonna not require the use of the field anymore?
So thanks, I appreciate that. And this is part of what I alluded to earlier, that there were pieces of these documents that in my mind were still an ongoing conversation rather than the college's position. And, again, it's a challenging time for higher education, and it's a challenging time for Ripon College right now. And so I can't predict what the future is going to hold. Some of this is reflecting giving ourselves some additional flexibility into the future. So that's really the thought process behind there.
Okay, thank you.
But just to be clear, giving you flexibility puts the burden on the taxpayers of the Ripon area school district. Giving a private entity that flexibility creates a tax burden for our citizens, which is not appropriate.
And absolutely, I absolutely understand that point. And we would all, I think, strive to continue our very rewarding partnership for all involved, including our community, including the college, including the school district, and including the taxpayers who benefit from all of us being a strong community. That is not, we would all endeavor to ensure that no one was unduly burdened by this. But again, there are financial realities at play that may or may not affect Ripon College's ability to maintain obligations.
Are there any other questions or comments for Andrea or Jonah?
I'd just echo Becky's comments too about the partnership we've had. I know the college has supported very generously by a lot of community members in the past, and I think we'll continue to do so. So I think that's important to keep in mind as we go forward with this dialogue, that the college continue to join up with this partnership, because as Becky said, that really does belong to the college. You can't ask the taxpayers to do that. You also contribute to the college as well.
Right, absolutely. But I would also, just make the statement that the college needs the support of the community as well. We all, and so we continue to view ourselves as strong partners, and in the same way that we are going to be asking our staff, our faculty, our students, our alumni to continue and maybe even give more support than they've given in the past. The same is true of our community. That is on some level what the part of the conversation is from our standpoint. But we do, again, greatly appreciate all the wonderful support that the community has given us.
So you're okay with this, Jonah? With the funding of the full packages, because we have, what, 300, we have an X amount in the endowment for it that we planned ahead years ago.
Right.
We can cover the rest.
Right.
What happens, okay, say we go ahead and do this and we install the new field. Now we need to start thinking about turf replacement in 15 years. What's the plan around, do we have a plan around that?
Not yet. We have different options that we could do. We started that Fund 46 for capital projects.
Oh, yeah.
This would be something that would be a possibility. We were thinking that we would use some of the Fund 46 that we started last year for a track project in 2024.
Right.
So that's a possibility. But you know, I think we're still leaving a lot of options on the table and you know, gonna figure out what would be best for us.
But you're right, I think planning ahead makes a big difference, because to have gotten
Yeah.
to this point and not have had previous boards
Right.
think about that and plan for that would have been a hard
Yeah,
time for
consider
us.
we have more than half already there for us. Makes this decision a little easier for us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Andy.
So with that conversation, has Ripon College not planned ahead for this date? Is that what you're saying on a financial end for the Ripon College's investment into the field?
We had not had, there had not been clear communication about when this project was going to take place.
Based on the documents that you have, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. And so in our current fiscal year, I think same as yours, starts July 1. And we were under the impression that this project was going to have a start date of a year or two down the road. We understand absolutely the safety of all of our students is the most important, and so we are supportive of the idea of accelerating this project. But did we budget for it in our current fiscal year budget? No, we didn't, because we didn't know it was coming this fiscal year.
And in all fairness to the college, Andrea's new in her position and Ryan's new in his position, so the individuals that we were having previous conversations with are no longer at the college.
Of course.
What's the difference between the July 15th and July 1st dates?
Oh, so this is another one of these places where
I was just
yeah, exactly. The only rationale there was that bookkeeping wise, if you get an invoice on July 1, have you paid it in last fiscal year or this fiscal year? But I'm so embarrassed to even be mentioning it in this venue, because it is quite literally something that the college has no official position on July 1 versus July 15.
I didn't know if there was a specific reason for it.
No, it was purely a bookkeeping thing, but if it is problematic for anyone, by all means, please strike that.
Anything else? Because now let's get everything out on the open, on the table, clear whatever air needs to be cleared now, if we can, if there's anything remaining.
I mean, one thing that I heard was that I think most people prefer is for any games to take preference over practices on either side. Like if there's a game, that the practice gets moved instead of the game get moved to a different time. If that happens,
Yeah, I don't think that's something that we would discuss, that would be more through Bill and.
okay. Well, it
If
says
you
in
had
here, the preference for
For the
preseason
scrimmage, you
games
mean?
and scrimmages, you know, but, and I don't have a problem with that, but, you know, like, games should be, get the, you know, priority over practices.
That might be something that we just want to look at is just the scheduling protocol, to kind of have a process in place for what that looks like. I think it's probably very clear to those who do that on a regular basis what those steps and processes are, and I don't know that it's clear to everyone else how that happens. So.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, well, thanks, Jonah and Andrea. Next we have considering an upcoming action to consider approval of the Barlow Park Charter School Agreement. Are there any questions about the draft contract? I understand that that's a draft contract. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
The articles of incorporation are not in there yet because we're still working with Tom Onis on the 501c3 status, so that's not in there.
I would assume those would be pretty similar to what was within Odyssey and.
They will be, yeah. And the contract was based on the format from DPI, which is the same format that Odyssey had used, and then we used information from Journey's contract as well as K-Tech, which is Barlow Park's mentor school.
Okay.
It's not super exciting reading.
I do. This is on page 11, under section 3.10 C. It says, if there are not enough students for an entire legacy classroom, the students would be transported to a nearby school district at the cost of Ripon Area School District. And I would just like a little bit more information on that.
Mm-hmm. Page 10, you said?
11, actually, top of 11.
Section 310.
C.
Yeah, so we are required to provide a non-charter option, and unfortunately, if we didn't have enough students, if we had, say, 3 students or a handful of students that were not interested in either Journey Charter School or Barlow Park Charter School, then we would have an agreement with the nearby school district, one in which we are already transporting students to and from, and that's where those students would go if that was what they had wanted. But I would anticipate that that if we had students who were not interested in either charter school, that we would probably have enough for a legacy classroom. Might be a combined classroom, like a 1-2 split, but it really would just depend on those numbers.
Mm-hmm. And that 1-2 split, that's something you are comfortable with?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that section B, it just doesn't read right to me. If we do not have enough students who wish to participate in the K-2 charter school, there would be a legacy classroom created for that grade level. I mean, you're trying to say that if there's not enough students.
I think it would be if we have enough. I think it's supposed to say if we have enough students who do not wish.
You know, that's
yeah.
something that should probably be corrected.
That's, yes.
The other thing is, a lot of these, have they been verified that they're in accordance with, because there's 90% of this stuff is not in any of the other contracts.
Correct, and remember that the Odyssey, because we've accepted federal funds, and this charter school, because we've accepted those federal funds, we have to follow this model contract, and so you're right, these 2 contracts are much more legalistic.
They've been verified that they're in
and they
accordance
follow
with
that
district
template, and actually, we have to send the contract in and have it approved and verified at the state level that those required elements are in there and the correct language is in there.
And there was one other part that I thought sounded odd. I forgot my notes at work when I left in a hurry, and I don't have the exact spot of it.
Okay.
It had to do with if something bought by the governance council for the charter school,
Mhm.
when the charter school no longer wants it, the district gets first option to buy it.
And that's
I mean,
been
it's
pretty standard.
already owned by the district, so technically, so why would the district be, buying it? When, that just didn't, it didn't sound right.
I think what they mean is that if it's something
Jonah was raising
that
his
is,
hand.
what's that?
Jonah was raising his hand.
Jonah.
I was just gonna, because these two charter schools, as Mary's trying to say, they have changed some of the rules and the governance council has more power. And so that idea that the governance council owns it is, they, with this new model of charter school, have more authority, independent authority. They're supposed to be, like for example, we have to have an audit of that school separate from our school district audit. So it has to be, they have to prepare financial statements that are just unique to that school, and they've never required that of any other charter school. So they have different requirements for like the sale of property and things like that from the state level as well. But I think the language that you're talking about, I think in a practical sense, I wouldn't be concerned that they would try to, you know what I mean? I think that it's such a partnership between and we.
That's what I was thinking, and that's why I thought it sounded.
But some of the languages that required language.
Yes.
And I think from a federal standpoint, there's always been frustration because Wisconsin charter schools have had that much closer relationship with the authorizing school district, that from a federal level, they didn't think there was enough separation. And so as these federal dollars have come into Wisconsin, they've come with these federal requirements to make sure that there's clarity there, because Wisconsin state law is much more flexible than most other states in terms of charter schools.
Further in that paragraph, it says that in no event shall Barlow Park Charter School donate property to any organization or governmental body other than the district, which leads me to believe that they probably could donate it. So, given that we're all on the same team, hopefully that won't be an issue.
If it is an issue for the school board, clarification on that when we do agree to looking at it should be very specific, because it sounds to me like with the new charter laws, a lot of that, your governance council is going to dictate is the correct terminology, how some of that could play out. So if the board has an issue or a concern, the language of that should be very appropriate and worked out well between both boards.
Even having a process or procedure even before we move forward. Exactly. That's a good point. It's our practice on the ground that's going to make a difference between the two entities.
Well, we've seen some very strong precedents within our governance councils already within the district. And through past board members, when that's a concern, if it's already laid out, there's no question. So it just safeguards everybody.
Are you saying, Amy, are you asking the administration to do more research on this topic?
No, I'm just saying that if the board of us that is sitting here now has any questions or concerns as these contracts come up, that we take it to Tanya with the concerns and make it a strong working relationship in the document, so that it doesn't have to come down to a relationship between this board and that board. It's already well lined out and there are no questions, and it makes it very simple.
That's something, Tanya, we can look at with Diane from DPI and share that information with both boards of what typically that works, and there may be districts, even the mentor school, that might have a protocol or practice for that. That could be a guide, as Amy's suggesting.
I agree. Let's spell it out beforehand.
It just sounds like the laws are very different than they were even 4 years ago, when a lot of this was being looked at with different boards.
And those things won't impact the other charters because they're not under the federal dollars. And potentially not impact this one moving forward once the dollars are gone.
Are there any other, John, do you have any
Nope.
other
Nope.
comments? Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Tanya. Okay, the next possible upcoming action item is to consider approval of a 20-year agreement with Ripon College to maintain Ingalls-Field. Not sure the best way to proceed. Jonah, did you want to lead this off, or?
Andrea's here as well, and we should have probably combined those two items, but,
Sure. Thanks, Andrea.
Both organizations thought that if we are continuing the partnership with, the new surface of the field, and especially with financing, we needed an agreement that extended at least as long as the financing terms were. And so we started looking at renewing the 20-year agreement, which is supposed to expire in 2021. And so you can see in the document some of the things that we've been talking about as far as potential changes or recommendations.
So to be clear, we're just taking the opportunity, since we're already in discussion about the turf, to sort of take now the opportunity rather than wait another year.
Yeah.
Okay, that kind of makes sense.
And the one item in terms of that being released from the financial commitment impacts this document as well, because that would be a change in what our past practice had been. So it made sense to have those discussions now, because they were coming up in the finance agreement, but they were different from this agreement.
So there are two memos here. Why don't we just discuss them both together? If anyone has any comments, now's the time to, or questions, now's the time to get those out on the table.
Sure. There is language in here about changing the size of the committee that oversees Ingalls-Field. Ingalls-Field is a community asset, and I am very much against anything that diminishes participation from the community in how Ingalls-Field is maintained going forward. So I'm very much against changing the size of that committee.
Do we know now who the members are of that committee, the current committee?
I don't know that they've ever been preset, I think, at the time that.
So it's ad hoc, as needed.
I think there are two things we have to figure out with the college. And one of them is, does the 20-year agreement keep the language that says that all future projects or improvements at the field will be paid 1/3, 2/3, which is one of the most important parts of the agreement that we have to talk about. And the other is that what Mary had mentioned with the escape clause or whatever, if they decided to leave. Those are the two things we really haven't worked out at all yet, I guess. We have to figure that out.
And then the number 10 is the release from the debt repayments. So for a project that's already agreed upon, that the college could step away from that agreement for a specific maintenance project.
Although it should be made clear that the bulk of what is in point 10 is in the current agreement and has been in the agreement since the 60s. So should the college no longer require the use of Ingalls Field, will release by proper instruments our reversionary interest in the field. So that is not new language. And indeed, there was no language at all, as far as I can tell, regarding if we were in the middle of a project together, what obligations either party would have for that.
And I think in the past, the financing for the last installation, the district did not hold that debt. It was actually the field turf company that held that debt. So that didn't need to have language in here because we weren't in the process of that long-term debt where the district was holding that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We did ask if the field turf company of Midwest would be willing to do that, and they were not willing to offer financing for the college's portion of the field, as the previous vendor had.
So I guess I'd like a clarification on whether or not point 10 is a change from past the current agreement.
It's not, except for the part at the bottom, which says, at that time, the college would be released from debt repayments to the district for completed projects. And the college will be released from future obligations related to maintenance and installation.
Okay.
And that should be in blue, and I will change that before the next meeting.
Thank you.
So it signals that that's new language that would be added.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, well, I think hopefully this will set us up for coming to a good decision. Now, actually, this possible upcoming action item is the plan to have this on the December docket? Okay. Very good.
Our vendor is anxious to have us schedule with them. These three kind of need to move together.
Although, at the risk of sounding antagonistic here, which is certainly not what I intend to sound like, the college still needs to agree to the terms put forward, as that's what's in our 2001 agreement, is that any major projects that are undertaken with regards to Ingalls need to be agreed upon by both parties. And so the school board, by my reading of that, can't act unilaterally on this project. And so I think there's probably some more discussion that needs to happen between the college and the administration of the school district so that we can get ourselves into a point that we are in agreement by the time you all vote in December. And I'm happy to facilitate more conversations along those lines.
Although, if there isn't agreement, the board will ultimately decide what they want as an agreement to take that forward. Do you have an idea timeline-wise? Would it be before the December meeting, when the college would know?
I think we could certainly have some conversations and make that happen so that we can respect your timeline as well.
So the next one that comes back may be simplified version with some of the
I hope
choices
so.
removed.
Mm-hmm.
So from the district's point of view, can we commit to, getting these final discussions going with the college?
Yeah, we can, but ultimately the board's going to have to say, this is what we will accept as terms
Sure.
for the agreement.
Yes.
And then see if the college will accept those as well.
Okay.
Could that delay then our start date in June if we wanted to go in June?
I don't think so. We hope not to go into January, but we can't start a project if both entities have an agreement.
I guess I would encourage both entities to
Get it sorted.
keep meeting in time to have something for our board. Our
And
board's
ultimately, it won't
meeting
be
in
more
December.
complicated than what's here, but it sounds as though there's some things that the college would be willing to move on that may streamline the document.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you both. Okay, next, we will be possibly and likely asked to approve the 2021 school calendar. Are there any questions or comments to discuss?
Calendar's always very, very tight with when we can start, which is after September 1st. And when we try to be done in that first week of June, because we feel like the productivity of our students diminishes if we get into that second week of June. So it does create for a tight calendar with, there really isn't a whole lot of options on our end.
Tom?
Who all worked on the calendar?
Really, it starts with Jolene and I rolling over the calendar in the existing format, and then we send it out to the admin team and then to staff for feedback.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I know that calendaring, again, is always problematic.
We always try to approve it in December because we know our families received opportunities to select vacation in January of the previous school year, so we always try to be cognizant of it.
Okay, any other comments? Now we can move.
I was going to say, probably the most interesting thing in the calendar is that because school starts on September 1st, there's no school on that Monday, but it's not Labor Day. So you end up with 2 4-day weeks because Labor Day then doesn't hit until September 7th. So it is the latest that you would have Labor Day.
So there's no like built-in snow days throughout the year, just at the end?
There are, it includes minutes for 2 snow days. Plus our elementaries always have additional minutes because their total minute requirement is significantly less than.
Was there ever any
7 through 12.
consideration to having off Monday after Easter with so many families that travel?
We would go into the next week in June, so we tried not to do that, knowing that those families could take the day if they chose.
I was just asking, you know, that's.
We had lots of discussion about the last day in December too. It just is not, this is probably the tightest that the calendar will ever be because of when Labor Day starts. Every year moving forward is going to look better. For at least 7 years.
Until the calendar cycles back.
Yeah, until things are around.
Okay, anything else about the calendar?
Good question.
Okay, now we have an opportunity to ask any questions about the planning guide and course offering revisions at the high school.
I appreciate the summary that tells us the changes. That's a long document to read on those.
If you don't have skin in the game selecting classes, it's a long time.
That handbook has been a work of great effort.
It has changed significantly, just in the time I've been here. But if you have any questions on that, let us know. And Randy and Chrissy aren't here today, but certainly can give those questions to them, and then we'll share all the answers across the whole board.
One question, Mary, on the history English that Mr. Cardinal is going to be teaching. Is there any thought that if it's piloted and done well, that we would offer more of those classes throughout the
I think that's the hope, and that would be keeping that Lumen feel within our existing
That's exciting.
program. So yeah, it is pretty exciting.
Sorry, what revisions were they made?
You want to stand and you
That's good that they're offering more high level science classes.
Okay. Let's now move to, I believe, legislative updates. Either, Mary, would you like to speak about the breakfasts?
Yeah, and you just see all the network meetings that are on there, including the legislative breakfast is in the last column. And if you want to just kind of keep those on your radar as we move forward to the start of the new school year, they've been pretty engaging to attend, to get to know our legislators a little closer. It's always fascinating to hear, you get such a broad representation. Sometimes we've had, Tom, we've had over a dozen at some meetings. Tom's attended those. Gary's attended those. Nate has. I know Betsy's expressed some interest, but it is really interesting to see where concepts and ideas for some of the things that they would suggest move forward through our legislative system come forward, and then how we can provide information on the impact to schools or how certain things would impact us. So, and then you get a chance to meet other superintendents and school board members to see what they're thinking about in their district. And we have very large districts and very small districts in our CISA, so you also become aware of how a decision for maybe the middle of the road districts has a significant impact on any of those as well. So if you would put those on your radar as possible items, we usually, is it probably a week before, even just a couple days before, we can usually get you on. We just need to let you know. And they always promise eggs and bacon, so it's usually a pretty good breakfast too. And that's a nice time to just have some casual conversation. So again, invite you to attend those if you can. I don't know if anyone that's been there wants to add anything about your experience.
I thoroughly enjoyed attending, and I only attended the last one that was in May of last year, and it was a great opportunity to meet not with just your legislators, but also other area legislators, and having that chance to do roundtables too, having a little bit more intimacy in that sense was also something that I really enjoyed and appreciated. Certainly learn a lot about what's going on at the state level, and then also what's happening in some of the other local districts.
It's great to see the perspectives of the different legislators there.
That's right.
They vary quite a bit. So it's very useful. It's an eye-opening experience if you can get away for one or two of them. Okay.
And then WASB delegate assemblies coming up right around the corner. So if we have anyone who's interested to let us know. Tom has done that for us for a number of years. I actually sat in this past year, and it was really interesting to see that process as well. How many individuals are in there, Tom?
About
One from
300
and
421 districts.
And they're voting on what that organization what your organization will move forward with and support and encourage within the legislative bodies.
So will that be something that comes before the board to vote on in a meeting? Or is it just?
It can be.
It can
Yeah,
be.
it can be.
Okay.
I think we've done that in the past when we find out what the resolutions are. We share them out with the board, and if there's anything you want to talk about, if there's any that stand out that you think are really critical, then you could let whoever the delegate is know kind of what the board would recommend.
We are not required to take board action to appoint a delegate, but you can. It's not required.
And Tom, you're currently serving as our delegate? Or
It's only one. It's only at the state convention.
Yeah. Okay.
when we see the resolutions. One year we went through all of them. We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
If one's bothering you and think we should vote on it as a board, we can do that, but we don't need to spend half hour talking about all of them. Because some of those, there's no discussion on some of them, we just vote.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So we should plan on time. Are you interested?
Are you, yeah, I guess that
I'm the
was,
backup in case someone else really wants to.
And you can sit in, so if anyone is interested in the future and would like to sit in and have Tom do it this year, you certainly can do that too.
Yeah, there's a peanut gallery.
Yeah, that's where I sat, that's where I sat.
My wife sits there.
It was nice to be there. Sit back.
okay, thank you.
All right. And then just an update for the board. Jonah and Jolene and I have been reviewing and meeting with vendors to review and provide support for the survey process and the communication that we want to have with the community in relationship to that 2020 operational referendum. And we did look into the Donovan Group as being a very affordable option should the board decide to move forward with a survey or want to bring an entity in. The other group that we reviewed was School Perceptions, which was the organization that we worked with for our facilities referendum. And they were more expensive and just felt like the Donovan Group was a good alternative. If you remember, those of you who are on the board, when we did our facilities referendum, we did send out multiple bids, and School Perceptions was the only organization that came back. So it is nice to know that there's a couple out there in the mix. And my understanding is that Joe Donovan, who runs this group, actually used to work for School Perceptions. So I think very similar philosophies and knowledge and understanding of supporting districts through that process. So.
All right, any questions about that?
We'll wait till the new year to dive in deeper to the referendum.
Okay. Any questions about the school operation or comments about the school operational reports? Thank you for preparing them. Okay, next, Chrissy's not here to answer questions about curriculum highlights for November. I guess I would encourage you to email Chrissy if you have questions, or if there's something that you want to bring up now to Mary. That would be a good time.
And same is true probably for the math audit as well. Chrissy did video comments for the report card, which we'll play tonight too.
Yes, thank you. So we'll move through that. And I guess, so with regard to the report card, we do have a video to discuss that.
The plan was to play it unless you're opposed.
And I think it would be
So 7 minutes.
I think it would be a good idea to play it.
We do have a requirement to post results and make
The
a link
results
on
are
it.
in, and we are pleased to announce that the Ripon Area School District earned 4 out of 5 stars on the state report cards from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, issued for the 2018-19 school year. Based on this 5-star rating, Ripon exceeds expectations for educating students. The district retained the 4-star rating each of the last 4 years. You also see the ratings for each of our schools over the last 4 years. The district and school report cards are based on a 100-point scale. Based on its score, a school or district receives one of 5 rating categories, from significantly exceeds expectations to fails to meet expectations, as well as corresponding 1 to 5 stars. The district and school receive points in 4 priority areas. Schools and districts receive a score for each priority area. Points are earned for student achievement proficiency in English language arts and mathematics on the annual state assessments. This includes the Wisconsin Forward Exam, ACT Aspire 9 and 10, ACT 11, and Dynamic Learning Maps. Points are also awarded for school growth, measured by year-to-year progress in ELA and math achievement. The district and individual schools are also given a score for closing gaps in performance between specific student groups, comparing English learners, low-income students, students with disabilities, and members of a racial or ethnic group with their peers. Finally, points are earned for on-track and post-secondary readiness, which are reliable predictors of how many students are on track to graduate from high school and student readiness for post-high school success. Barlow Park and Journey Charter Elementary Schools have alternative report cards and received satisfactory ratings. Since these schools do not participate in the state assessments, they do not have the data necessary to calculate school report card scores and instead participate in an alternate accountability process. Alternate accountability is a district-supervised self-evaluation process in which schools report and evaluate their performance in raising student achievement in ELA, mathematics, and preparing students to be on track for college and careers. These priority areas align to those in the school report cards. Instead of the 5 rating categories on the report card, alternate accountability schools receive a rating of either satisfactory progress or needs improvement. Murray Park Elementary School received a 5-star rating, landing them in the significantly exceeds expectations category. Murray Park had the highest increase in its overall score, moving up 6.5 points over last year. This is attributed to a substantial increase in points earned for student achievement, school growth, and closing gaps compared to last year's results. Quest Elementary School also received a 5-star rating, placing them in the significantly exceeds expectations category for the past 4 years. Quest has maintained a perfect score in closing gaps and near perfect score in student achievement with a decrease in school growth. There is less room for schools with high student achievement to see an increase in school growth based on the weighted formulas that DPI has put in place. Ripon Middle School earned a 4-star rating on the 2018-19 report card, placing them in the exceeds expectations category. Ripon Middle School increased their overall score by 2.8 points compared to last year. They made significant progress in closing gaps in both ELA and mathematics. Like Murray Park and Quest Elementary Schools, Catalyst Charter Middle School also received a 5-star rating, placing them in the significantly exceeds category 2 years in a row. While student achievement in Catalyst has gone up, there has been a slight decrease in points obtained in the school growth and closing gap categories compared to last year. Ripon High School received a 3-star rating, placing them in the meets expectations category. RHS increased in overall score by 0.5 points over last year and remained in the meeting expectation category. The high school report card now uses ACT Aspire data along with ACT 11 to calculate a student achievement and school growth score, where previously only ACT 11 was used to determine student achievement. The report cards are intended to help schools and districts utilize performance data to target their improvement efforts so that students are ready for their next educational step, including the next grade level, graduation, college, and careers. These results demonstrate the high-quality instruction to all students in the Ripon Area School District from our exceptional staff. Thanks to the generosity of our community through the passing of the operational referendum, New materials have been purchased in all subject areas across all grade levels to support the high-quality instruction taking place throughout our district. The growth we are experiencing can also be attributed to the focused work of educators across the district on the Board of Education's Response to Instruction annual goal in literacy for the past 5 years. We have added math to our district goals for continuous quality improvement while maintaining the goal for literacy instruction. While RASD has proven to be among the top performing districts in the state, administration and staff are committed to rising above this level of excellence and continue to work toward meeting district goals or improvement. We will continue to provide targeted interventions to students in need of additional support during our RTI and advisory blocks. We will provide professional development and coaching opportunities to our staff to ensure that they are fully equipped to deliver high-quality instruction to all students. We will continue to analyze local and state assessment data to adjust teaching and learning strategies to more effectively reach student learning. The overall results reflected on the district and school report cards reflect the high-quality instruction and commitment to continuous improvement that Ripon Area School District provides for all students.
Okay, well, thank you to the staff that put that report and presentation together.
Just two points of comment from that. When they talked about the report for Barlow Park and Journey, and it being a self-report that we submit to DPI, we do retain a file of that report in the district office. We're required to do that. It's based on the goals that you received, the goal report out that you received in June on performance of each grade and the group of students. So that is there if anyone is interested in seeing that. Otherwise, you've seen the results in June. Those were shared with you. And then we have made contact with our legislators, Representative Joan Ballwig, as well as Senator Luther Olson, regarding what we're seeing happening with Quest and some of the higher achieving schools where when you reach the top and you're a few points away from almost, perfect achievement, it's really hard to maintain. And it's also very difficult to acquire any points in growth because you're already there. And so suggesting putting in like a hold harmless, that when you reach a certain level of performance, we're satisfied, we're happy, you're there, maintain, but not to be kind of nitpicking within that range to say, oh, you didn't grow. Well, there wasn't room to. So have had those conversations, and I think that's been really helpful.
Thank you, Mary. Other comments? Okay.
That's really helpful. Just a presentation of the data.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good summary. Yeah. Good job, Chrissy. Wish you were here to hear the kudos. Okay. Any questions or comments on the food service report? It's a little early to say anything, I think. So why did I say anything? Okay, let's move on to the interim budget report. Questions about that? And summer school financial summary, I found this very interesting. Does anybody have any questions or comments about it? I really appreciated the format that you presented that in. Jonah, thank you. We do not need to adjourn to executive session. So I'm going to just skip by it. Hopefully that won't break the program. And we don't need to reconvene. And There are some, for advanced planning, the Roars Luncheon is at 11:30 in RHS Community Room on November 20th. Always a happy event. Our next board meeting is December 16th here. We'll have a work session on December 4th. I'm not exactly sure what the agenda will be, to be honest, but we'll get that out.
Well, just a clarification, we have our board work sessions on Mondays, correct?
Yeah.
Because the
Yes.
4th would be a Wednesday.
Oh, that was probably an error on my part.
Just want to clarify.
Come on, Julie.
I know, I'm sorry.
Jeez. Okay, thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you for
I
asking.
missed that. Okay. I'll accept the motion to adjourn. Thanks, Amy.
Second.
Thanks, Betsy. And we'll call for the vote.
I'm trying to think that, right? Is it
Join
pulling up?
me again.
Okay. That motion passes unanimously and we are adjourned. Thank you very much, Pete.